One of the best things that happens whenever you take a critical eye to PlayStation's business strategy is that you see some things that if you weren't really paying attention, you'd walk over them. And at the end of the day, you would probably maybe carry a perception that you maybe thought in your head, or maybe the press made you believe. And then you would just go with it. PlayStation has something within its coffers that it calls its tentpole games versus its live service games. Now, the conversation about tentpole games has been one of contention. I've battled with a lot of PlayStation fans as to their games and how they see them coming to PC day one. And for the most part, PlayStation fans have said to me that their tentpole games, that's the single player games that PlayStation makes, are not going to be coming to PC day one. Which is funny because I've started to see some of that stuff erode because their single player games have made their way, including one tentpole franchise, Horizon, that made its way to PC and the Switch day one. But let's go ahead and move all that aside and say, okay, what is PlayStation's investment strategy for these so-called tentpole games? I strongly believe that the investment strategy is basically them putting in their heaviest parts of their funding into these games, and they've done that for the longest time. Marvel Spider-Man 1, we don't know how much it was, developed for, but we know that Marvel Spider-Man 2 had a $314 million budget. That's one of their tentpole franchises. Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West, these are their $200 million games. These are the games that they spent the most amount of money on. Somewhere, though, around the last few years, when especially Microsoft was trying to get Activision Blizzard in its coffers, we saw PlayStation make a very interesting announcement. It made the announcements to its own investors. This is also at the back of when they had, started talking a little bit more after they had talked about them bringing their live service games to PC day one and not bringing their single player games to PC. But when we take a very close look, though, we realize that PlayStation inverted its investment strategy and moved almost, a significant chunk, if not more than, 50%, or at least about 50% ish of its investment in its tentpole single player games and moved that to live service games. Let's go ahead and take a very close look. We were talking about this in the last video, and I thought we should continue it because it's very interesting. This article here, written by Rebecca Smith for PlayStationLifestyle.net, says Sony investing more in live service than single-player PlayStation games. Now, when we look at this article where PlayStation is affirming a strategy on when it's going to bring single-player games to PC, we'll realize that right here, PlayStation is clarifying that while it's bringing its live service games simultaneously on PS5 and PC, the single-player games will follow a different strategy, of which the single-player games, which it tags as its tentpole games, right? He'll sell this. The more strategic, that means plans to introduce friendly new audiences, blah, 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 investigation to the it's right here. There's somewhere in the article where it says something about the tentpole. Let me go ahead and find it for us, because, man, that's a very, oh, there we go. However, tentpole single-player games, Hall said the company will take a more strategic approach, and it plans to introduce its franchises to new audiences via the PC initiative. And then he had said somewhere here, you got to go read the article, that those games are going to be coming later. However, they moved a lot of their investment money into the live service side. So the highest invested games on PlayStation, the games that are taking the highest investment, are going to be going to PC day one. There's an interesting picture here. Let's go ahead and keep reading, though. This is the article that I wanted to focus on. I just wanted to point that out just so we can put that in perspective. Sony has revealed they're now investing more money in live service games than in traditional single-player games. While the company would not abandon single-player games, the investment gap between the two will grow further going forward. Sony won't leave single-player games behind. That's what they said. Back in 2019, Sony was investing 88% of its budget in single-player games, with 12% allocated for live service titles. This year, the publisher expects just 45% of its budget in traditional games and 55% in live service, according to the latest financial results. That investment is set to increase to 60% by fiscal year 2025. The current plan is to release, according to them, 2 more first-party PS5 exclusives per year that will cover every major genre. These will be a mix of single-player and live service games, while the proportion of spending on single-player games is set to decrease in the future. Sony will still put a hefty chunk towards them, according to the financial charts. Sony plans to spend marginally more on single-player games in FY 2025 than it did in fiscal year 19. However, no actual figures were revealed. Sony Entertainment's head, Herman Hulse, revealed that the company has 12 live service games in development. As per Tom Warren, these games include a Last of Us multiplayer game, which got canceled, an online project set in Horizon Universe, which is still ongoing, the newly revealed Fair games, which is still going, From Heaven, Destiny 2, which has been restructured, MLB The Show 23, which is on Xbox, and a game from Fireworks Walk Studios, which we now know was canceled as Concord. Notably absent from the list is Deviation Games, whose PS5 exclusive is rumored to be canceled, with studios canceled following layoffs at the studio. The game was also absent from today's PlayStation Showcase, which revealed, which included reveals of Metal Gear Solid 3 and a collection and many more. So PlayStation is telling us in one breath that, our tentpole games are not going to come to PC day one, but we're going to invest heavily in the games that we're going to send to PC day one. Or am I reading it wrong? Am I making this stuff up, or is it just me? Am I going crazy? Because again, we know that these live service games are coming to PC day one. They've said so. They're doing it. We also know that they're increasing their investment into live service games and taking a chunk out of their single player games to put towards live service games. We know that. And if I even go back and look at the article and when it was written, it wasn't even written at the end of 2023. It was written in May 2023. Now, they knew that Activision Blizzard was about to be acquired, but there was still a huge fight as to how this was going to play out. Right? So they were making moves. Is PlayStation going to really commit to its console as much as people think it will? Yes, but those single player games and their expenses, their yield in PlayStation's mind may not necessarily give them a lot of confidence. I don't know. Maybe they're making a mistake, or maybe they are just not confident as to what's going on. Perhaps the whole live service craze is pushing for this. Because again, I think this talk about tentpole games and this talk about, these so-called single player games are like PlayStation's pride and joy and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, they are seemingly no longer that, because it's changing their investment philosophy. I think this is probably the most interesting thing that I have, just in a sense, just accidentally discovered. We're talking about something else in a different video, and this just came up. Weird, isn't it? Wow. I just feel like, you know what? I guess the data continues to speak for itself. And what is the data that continues to speak for itself? The fact that more people are playing live service games all over the world than even the single player games. PlayStation is investing heavily to break and crack this particular, place. This top 15 games that are played across the board, it wants to crack it. And it knows that on PlayStation it's going to be hard to do if it did it exclusively. You cannot do it exclusively. You need other platforms. And if it cannot crack these other platforms, I think it's going to find itself going to PC. As MLB The Show makes its way and has made its way to PC and stays on PC, it might leverage that. It would do it in a sneakish way. Predator Hunting Grounds has now made its way into Xbox because its developers bought the publishing license. They might go find a license that they can have somebody else publish on Xbox while they make the game. That's going to be their backdoor into Xbox. That's what I think, because I've already seen the blueprint of it. Kojima bought Death Stranding's publishing rights and is publishing the game on Xbox. I don't know if PlayStation is making any money from it. It could be, because it's a PlayStation game. It's likely, actually. I'm not saying it definitely is, but it's likely. MLB The Show, they're making money from Xbox, from Game Pass, because they're not going to work for free. They're not going to work for the development of a game that's going to go sell somewhere else, and they're not going to get a cut of it. They're going to get a cut of it. Their own studios developed it. So I think that's the strategy they're going to use to go to Xbox. I don't know. I just have the hunch. It could be wrong, but I just suspect that that's how they're going to pull it off, to be able to get a live service game that sticks. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Peace out.